Here is a question that Western media will never ask honestly. When a man with a shotgun, a handgun, and 3 knives rushes a security checkpoint at the most powerful political dinner in the world, gets within meters of the President of the United States, and the administration's response within 48 hours is to announce a $400 million real estate deal for a new White House ballroom, what does that tell you about who this moment is really serving? Not the security question, not the political violence question, the real estate question, because that is the story buried under every breathless headline about Cole Thomas Allen. And if you have been watching only CNN, only the BBC, only The Guardian, you have been fed the shooter's biography with surgical precision while the transaction happening above your head has gone almost entirely unexamined. Stay with me. What you are about to hear will completely reframe everything you think you know about what happened on the night of April 25, 2026 at the Washington Hilton. This is not the story those outlets will tell you. Their story is clean, simple, and politically convenient. A 31-year-old teacher from Torrance, California, a man who donated $25 to Kamala Harris's campaign, a man whose own manifesto described himself as a friendly federal assassin, charged through a metal detector with 3 weapons and tried to kill the president. The narrative writes itself, unstable left-wing loner, radicalized by anti-Trump sentiment, another casualty of America's political polarization. That story is not false, but it is a frame, and the frame has been constructed with extraordinary care to ensure that the eyes of the world remain on Cole Allen while they remain firmly off the machinery that is now moving at full speed in the wreckage of this moment. Stay with me because this is where the narrative completely changes. Let us begin with the facts that every major outlet has reported and then quietly stopped examining. Cole Thomas Allen, 31, a California teacher and engineer, is accused of rushing a security checkpoint armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives, and exchanging gunfire with law enforcement outside the White House Correspondents Dinner at the Washington Hilton on the night of April 25, 2026. A Secret Service officer was struck by at least 1 round, believed to have been fired by the shooter, but the agent was protected by a bulletproof vest and is expected to recover. Trump, Melania, J.D. Vance, and top cabinet officials were evacuated from the ballroom. No attendees were seriously injured. The suspect was apprehended at the scene. Those are the facts. Now let us talk about what followed, because what followed is the story. The narrative writes itself, unstable left-wing loner, radicalized by anti-Trump sentiment, another casualty of America's political polarization. That story is not false, but it is a frame, and the frame has been constructed with extraordinary care to ensure that the eyes of the world remain on Cole Allen while they remain firmly off the machinery that is now moving at full speed in the wreckage of this moment. Stay with me because this is where the narrative completely changes. Let us begin with the facts that every major outlet has reported and then quietly stopped examining. Cole Thomas Allen, 31, a California teacher and engineer, is accused of rushing a security checkpoint armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives, and exchanging gunfire with law enforcement outside the White House Correspondents Dinner at the Washington Hilton on the night of April 25, 2026. A Secret Service officer was struck by at least 1 round, believed to have been fired by the shooter, but the agent was protected by a bulletproof vest and is expected to recover. Trump, Melania, J.D. Vance, and top cabinet officials were evacuated from the ballroom. No attendees were seriously injured. The suspect was apprehended at the scene. Those are the facts. Now let us talk about what followed, because what followed is the story. Within hours of the shooting, before Allen had even been arraigned, before investigators had finished reviewing his writings, before the Secret Service agent had been fully cleared medically, Donald Trump was on camera. And what was the first policy proposal he made? Not a call for deeper investigation, not a statement about the culture of political violence. Trump said the venue was not a particularly secure building and used it as support for the existence of the White House ballroom. Read that again. A man just tried to kill the President of the United States, and the President's first public policy conclusion was that he needs a new, more expensive building, and within 24 hours. Reporting emerged that this incident was being used to justify a $400 million White House ballroom deal. The body of the crisis was still warm and the real estate transaction was already in motion. And if you think that's surprising, the next part is even more significant, because let us talk about the timeline that the White House itself cannot get straight. The Trump administration is trying to clarify the timeline of when the suspected gunman's family learned of his writings and when they notified local police in Connecticut. The White House originally said the brother notified police minutes before the incident. However, a White House and an administration official now say the timeline is in flux. Think about what that means. The most basic factual question about this attack, when did the family warn law enforcement, is one that the administration has already given 2 contradictory answers to. And the press corps, the very journalists who were nearly killed at that dinner, are printing both versions without demanding clarity on which one is true, because demanding clarity on the timeline would require them to ask a question that nobody in that room wants answered. Did the system fail Cole Allen's family, or did the family fail the system? And either answer leads somewhere the narrative cannot go. Allen's sister told the Secret Service and Montgomery County Police that her brother had a tendency to make radical statements, and his rhetoric constantly referenced a plan to do something to fix the issues with today's world. This was known, his sister knew, his family knew, and yet Allen purchased 2 handguns and a shotgun and kept them stored at his parents' home, and the parents were unaware that firearms were being stored there. A family that knew their son was capable of political violence did not know he had 3 weapons stored in their own house. That is not a failure of intelligence. That is a failure of a system that made it trivially easy for a man flagged by his own family as a potential threat to acquire a shotgun in August 2025 and travel by train across the entire country to Washington, D.C. with that weapon in his possession. But what comes next is even more revealing. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said authorities believe the suspect traveled by train from Los Angeles to Chicago, and then Chicago to Washington, D.C., where he checked into the hotel where the Correspondents' Dinner was held in the last day or two. He stayed in the same hotel he checked in the night before. He was a registered guest sleeping floors above the ballroom where the most heavily protected man in America would be seated the following evening, and the security plan, praised publicly by Secret Service Director Sean Curran as proof that multi-layered protection works, did not detect a man with 3 weapons who was staying in the building. An attendee who reportedly had the hotel room next to Cole Allen recalled what he described as alarming security lapses in the hours before Allen allegedly opened fire. This was not a sophisticated operation. This was a man who walked into a hotel, checked in, and the following day walked toward the president. And the system is being praised for stopping him only after he had already fired. Stay with me because this is where the narrative completely changes. Here is the question that the entire establishment media apparatus has decided not to ask in any serious way. This is the 3rd time in less than 2 years that an individual has made a direct attempt against Donald Trump's life. Butler, Pennsylvania, West Palm Beach, now Washington, D.C. 3 attempts. Different individuals, different methods, different stated motivations. And in each case, the institutional response follows the same template with mechanical precision. Identify the shooter, release their biography, emphasize their political leanings, spend 72 hours dissecting their personal history, and then quietly, without editorial pressure, without congressional demand, without a single sustained media campaign, move on. The systemic question, the one that a functioning free press would treat as the central story, which is why is the most powerful security apparatus on earth failing repeatedly to prevent these events. That question does not receive 72 hours of coverage. It receives a press conference, a statement about multi-layered protection, and silence. Trump appeared on CBS 60 Minutes the day after the shooting. When journalist Norah O'Donnell read an excerpt of the suspect's reported writings, "I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes," Trump exclaimed. "Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody." And then Trump said O'Donnell should be ashamed for reading it. This is the President of the United States, one day after a near-assassination, using a network interview to fight with a journalist over language from the shooter's manifesto. That is what passed for the post-crisis national conversation. Not the security failures, not the weapons acquisition, not the 3 attempts in 2 years. The president's reputation versus one journalist's decision to read a document aloud. And if you think that's surprising, the next part is even more significant. Because we need to talk about what Cole Allen's profile actually reveals about the political infrastructure that produced him. Allen earned a mechanical engineering degree at Caltech in 2017 and a master's in computer science at Cal State Dominguez Hills in 2025. This is not a man who fell through the cracks of the education system. This is not a man who lacked opportunity, lacked intelligence, or lacked institutional access. He received a Teacher of the Month award from C2 Education in December 2024, 2 degrees, a teaching award, a game he designed and released independently, and 10 minutes before walking toward the President of the United States with 3 weapons, he sent his family a note apologizing to his parents, colleagues, students, bystanders, and others for what he was about to do, writing, "I don't expect forgiveness. Again, my sincere apologies." This is not the profile of a broken man. It is the profile of a rational man who made a catastrophic decision. And that distinction matters enormously because broken men are contained by security infrastructure. Rational men who have concluded that the political system has no remaining legitimate channels for change are a different category of threat entirely, and nobody in the American media establishment wants to discuss what it means that a Caltech graduate with a teaching award reached that conclusion. The machinery of outrage is fully operational. The verdict has already been written. Cole Allen is the villain. The Secret Service are the heroes. Trump survived. The dinner was disrupted. A new ballroom is needed. The $400 million deal is justified. Move along. That machinery depends on your passivity. It depends on the manufactured sense that the questions that actually matter about security failures, about weapons acquisition, about 3 attempts in 2 years, about what conditions produce a Caltech engineer who buys a shotgun and boards a train to Washington are too complex, too politically dangerous, too threatening to the narrative to be examined seriously. You have just examined them, and that is precisely what they do not want. The great crime of our time is not any single act of violence. It is the systematic dismantling of the questions that would force accountability from the institutions that failed to prevent it. Do not be complicit in that silence. Stay with me because in part 2 we go deeper into 3 questions that no major outlet is pursuing. First, why has the Secret Service's public posture after 3 attempts been praise and self-congratulation rather than structural reform? Second, what does the weapons acquisition timeline, a shotgun purchased in August 2025, a train journey across America, a hotel check-in the night before, tell us about the actual gaps in the security architecture around the most protected office in the world? And third, when a $400 million real estate transaction is announced within 48 hours of a near assassination, and when the president himself connects the two in his first public statement, who benefits and who authorized that connection to be made so quickly? Those answers are coming. Share this now, because what comes next is the part they really don't want you to understand.